If you're hearing this, it means my last transmission finally made it out of the white silence. My name is Dr. Lena Hart, and today marks exactly 1 year since the world outside went dark. I'm still alive, barely, inside the Polaris Arctic Research Station, a place that was never meant to be a tomb. The wind outside howls like a living thing, rattling the steel walls, and the sun hasn't risen in months. I haven't seen another human face since the last supply drop, and I'm not sure I ever will again. But I know I'm not alone. Something is out there, watching me, waiting. It started with the lights. On day 200, the generator flickered, plunging the station into a darkness so complete it felt like drowning. I thought it was just the cold or the endless night playing tricks on my mind. But then I saw the footprint, bare, human shape pressed into the snow outside the airlock. No one could survive out there barefoot, not for more than a minute. I tried to convince myself it was a hallucination, a side effect of isolation. But every morning, the prints were back, circling the station, always stopping just beneath my window. I set up cameras, desperate for proof. The footage showed nothing but swirling snow and the shifting shadows of the aurora. But sometimes, just at the edge of the frame, I'd catch a flicker of movement, something tall, impossibly thin, moving against the wind. I stopped sleeping near the windows after that. Every night, I'd hear the faintest tapping on the glass, like fingernails tracing a warning. I started keeping a journal, hoping that writing things down would keep me sane. Each entry became more frantic, the handwriting jagged and uneven. Supplies were running low: canned beans, freeze-dried soup, water from melted snow. I rationed everything, but the hunger gnawed at me, making my thoughts slippery. The station's radio was my only link to the outside, but all I ever heard was static, broken by the occasional burst of garbled voices. Sometimes, I thought I heard my own name whispered back to me, but when I played the recording, there was nothing. On day 227, I found the first message. It was scrawled in the frost on the inside of the observation window. Leave. The letters were shaky, as if written by a trembling hand. I stared at it for hours, breath fogging the glass, trying to convince myself I'd done it in my sleep. But I knew my own handwriting, and this wasn't it. That night, the tapping grew louder, more insistent, as if whatever was out there was growing impatient. I tried to ignore it, burying myself in routine, checking the weather instruments, logging the temperature, recording the wind speed. But the sense of being watched never left me. Every time I passed a window, I felt eyes on my back, cold and ancient. I started seeing shapes in the snow, tall shadows that seemed to move when I wasn't looking. One night, I woke to the sound of footsteps crunching on the roof, slow and deliberate, as if someone or something was circling above me. I lay frozen in my bunk, barely daring to breathe. The footsteps stopped right above my head, and for a moment, the only sound was the wind screaming outside. Then, a single, heavy thud, like something dropping onto the ice just outside the door. I waited, heart pounding, until the silence returned. In the morning, I found a trail of frost on the inside of the main corridor, leading from the airlock to the lab. The door was still locked, but the frost was unmistakable, like something impossibly cold had passed through. I checked the security cameras again, scrubbing through hours of footage. At 3:17 a.m., the feed glitched, the screen warping with static. For a split second, a tall, shadowy figure appeared in the hallway, limbs too long, head cocked at an unnatural angle. Then it was gone. I replayed the footage over and over, but the image never lasted more than a frame. I tried to tell myself it was a trick of the light, a glitch in the system, but deep down, I knew better. That night, I barricaded the doors with everything I could find: metal chairs, storage crates, even the heavy emergency kit. I slept with a flare gun under my pillow, jumping at every creak and groan of the station. The temperature inside dropped, frost creeping along the walls. I could see my breath in the air, swirling in the dim emergency lights. Just as I started to drift off, I heard it again, a soft, rhythmic tapping, this time coming from inside the ventilation ducts. I grabbed my flashlight and crept toward the sound, every step echoing in the empty corridor. The tapping grew louder as I approached the vent near the storage room. I knelt down, shining the beam into the darkness. For a moment, all I saw was swirling dust and fog. Then, something moved, a pale, spindly hand, too long and thin to be human, retreating deeper into the ductwork. I stumbled back, heart racing, slamming the vent cover shut and wedging a chair against it. I tried to radio for help again, my voice shaking as I called out into the static. "This is Dr. Lena Hart at Polaris Station. If anyone can hear me, please respond. There's something here with me." The only reply was a burst of static, followed by a faint, distorted echo of my own word. I shut off the radio, feeling more alone than ever. The next morning, I found another message, this time scripted scratched into the frost on the inside of the lab window. Stay. The contradiction made my skin crawl. Was it warning me or taunting me? I started to wonder if I was losing my mind, if the isolation and the endless night were finally getting to me. But every time I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, I'd hear that tapping or catch a glimpse of movement just beyond the edge of the light. I knew I had to find out what was haunting me, even if it meant risking everything. I decided to set a trap. I rigged a motion sensor and an old camera near the main vent, hoping to catch whatever was crawling through the duct. I barely slept, lying awake and listening to the wind rattle the walls, the station groaning as if it were alive. At 2:43 a.m., the sensor tripped. I rushed to the monitor, hands shaking, and watched as the camera flickered to life. For a split second, the lens caught a figure, tall, impossibly thin, its skin the color of old ice, eyes like black pits reflecting the emergency lights. It stared straight into the camera as if it knew I was watching. The feed cut out and the station plunged into darkness. I scrambled for the backup generator, fumbling with frozen fingers until the lights sputtered back on. When I checked the camera again, the figure was gone, but the vent cover was twisted, bent outward as if something had forced its way inside. I felt a cold dread settle in my chest. Whatever was out there, it wasn't just watching me anymore. It was trying to get in. I spent the next day reinforcing every door and window, sealing cracks with duct tape and blanket. The cold was relentless, seeping through every gap. I could hear the thing moving in the walls, scraping and tapping, always just out of sight. That night, as I tried to sleep, I heard a new sound, a low, guttural whisper echoing through the vents. It spoke my name, stretching it out until it barely sounded human. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the voice only grew louder, filling the station with its icy promise. On day 365, the sun still hadn't returned, and the world outside was nothing but endless white and howling wind. I was down to my last can of food, my last candle, my last hope. The station felt smaller every hour, the walls closing in, the cold pressing harder. That night, the whispering stopped. The silence was worse. I knew it was close, closer than ever. I could feel it watching from the shadows, waiting for me to make a mistake. I sat in the control room, clutching the flare gun, staring at the monitor. Every screen was filled with static, except one. On that feed, the camera pointed at the main entrance, the snow swirling outside. Suddenly, the door handle began to turn, slow and deliberate. My breath caught. The door creaked open, and a blast of freezing air swept through the station. The lights flickered, and for a heartbeat, I saw it tall, impossibly thin, its face a blur of shifting shadows, eyes like bottomless pit. It stepped inside, and the temperature dropped so fast frost bloomed across the walls. I fired the flare gun, the red light blazing through the darkness. The thing recoiled, vanishing into the blizzard outside, but I knew it wasn't gone. It would wait, as it always had, just beyond the edge of the light. I sealed the door, heart pounding, and sat in the silence, knowing I'd survived another night, but not the last. If you made it this far, comment, "I survived the Arctic," below. And if you want to know what happens when the sun finally rises, subscribe, because the next story might be your last. Out here, the darkness is never empty, and sometimes it's looking right back at you.